I've been seeing Jack for 2 years now, but we live separately due to the kids and just wanting to make sure this is 100% all in before uprooting them. I have 2 sons, 16-year-old twins, and 1 daughter, 11. He has 1 daughter, 13. We do weekend stays together twice a month so far, and there's never been any major issues, honestly. The girls have gotten into a few petty arguments, but other than that, no big problems. I spend around $1,000 a month in food, and that covers me and my kids, plus Jack and his daughter. For the 2 visits a month, I do a lot of meal prep and couponing. Last month, my mother asked me and my kids to go to her place in Louisiana to help her move out of her home and into a 50-plus community. It made me feel more comfortable to have my house occupied in my absence, to keep the dehumidifiers and everything running. Huge moisture issues, and I don't want anything to mold or rust. So I asked Jack if he and his daughter wanted to stay at my place for 2 weeks in our absence to keep everything running smoothly. I gave it a 2-week time frame but was unsure of how long it would actually take. I knew the drive alone would be 2 days there and 2 days back. He agreed. I did my monthly shop before leaving and spent $1,092. I told them they could have some of my food when we were gone, so maybe this is my fault. But anyways, we got back 2 days ago, 4 days before the 2-week mark, and found my house in ruin, practically. Dirty dishes on the counters and table, dirty clothes throughout the living room and bedrooms, mine and my daughter's where they slept. I keep my house clean, so this caused a lot of panic on my end. Grew up in a hoarder house, so I take pride in a clean home. But the one thing that truly tipped me over the edge was finding that they went through at least 90% of the food I bought before leaving in less than 2 weeks. We were left with a single pack of hamburger, all the veggies and a few boxes of pasta. Jack started scrambling when we entered the home, saying, "Sorry, I was going to clean before you got back, but I didn't expect you so soon." I just gave a hushed, "Please leave." He and his daughter left. But after giving it some thought, I told him he had to reimburse us the $1,000 worth of food that he and his daughter ate. I told him their intake was absolutely repulsive, that I said he could have some, not eat everything in the house and leave us with nothing. He said that he had allowed his kid to have her friends over, and they are a lot, but he shouldn't have to give me $1,000, given that I told him they could eat the food, that I have more than enough money, true, and he doesn't, also true. I still want to be reimbursed, however, and yes, we split up. Am I the idiot? ETA. This may make me sound bad, but I wouldn't consider him house-sitting as doing me any favours. All he has to do was dump out the dehumidifier when it got full. I could have asked my neighbour to do that for $200. He and his daughter live in a small apartment, and coming to my house feels like a vacation to them. Their words, not mine. I have a 2-story home with 6 bedrooms on the beach, with a hot tub, a game room, cable, and high-speed internet. They were essentially getting a free vacation, and the only thing they had to do was dump the dehumidifier once a day. I more or less asked for the $1,000 based off principle alone. I don't expect him to give me the money. But since he was not understanding my viewpoint on my it was acceptable, I asked him for the $1,000 so he could open his eyes and understand how big of a deal it truly is. I did the big shop before leaving because I had work obligations scheduled for when I returned, and going out and doing a big shop in the middle of 4 showings and mandatory seminars would have been a nightmare. I didn't buy any fridge stuff outside of what I knew they would eat. Everything I bought was non-perishables, boxed dinners and meat for the freezer. I didn't leave him over the food. I left him because after I tried explaining why this was wrong of him, he accused me of throwing my privilege money in his face, knowing he's not as financially stable as me and making him and his daughter feel bad for doing nothing wrong. I have never thrown money in his face, never asked him for anything, and have paid for everything in the past 2 years because he could not. Helped him with multiple bills, things his daughter needed without question, so he made me feel stupid, and I won't tolerate it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Not only did they trash your home, he allowed for his daughter to have friends, not just one, without asking you. You just got a good glimpse of what your future looks like if you live with the man and his daughter. He is responsible for the grocery bill. Send him the bill. Remind him that it was he who allowed his daughter and friends to consume all of your food, so he should replace it. You don't deserve it, and neither do your kids. Comment 2. Not the idiot. What were they thinking? They were guests in your home and disrespected your things, your furniture, and your pantry. They treated you like an all-day buffet in a 5-star hotel. Red flags. Please reconsider your long-term plans with this person. Living day-to-day with this behavior will be a nightmare for you and your kids. Now, for the update. So, it's been a week since the whole house-sitting disaster. and honestly it's been a mix of emotions. After Jack and his daughter left that day, I was fuming. I couldn't believe the state of my house. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the mess they left behind. My kids were pretty shocked too. They've never seen the house like that, and they were pretty upset about the food situation. The next day, I had to go out and restock the entire fridge and pantry. It was exhausting, and I kept thinking about the money I had to spend again. I was still angry at Jack, but a part of me missed him. It's weird how you can be so mad at someone but still care about them. I had a lot of time to think while cleaning and shopping. I realized that maybe I was too harsh on Jack. I mean, yes, he messed up big time, but I started to think about all the good times we had together. I remembered how he was there for me when I had a bad day at work or when the kids needed someone to talk to. It wasn't all bad, and I started to feel guilty for kicking him out without letting him explain. A couple of days later, Jack texted me. He apologized again and said he wanted to talk. I agreed, and we met at a coffee shop. It was awkward at first, but we started talking, and he explained everything. He told me how his daughter wanted to have friends over because she rarely gets the chance to in their small apartment, and things just got out of hand. He admitted he should have been more responsible, and that he was sorry for taking advantage of my generosity. I told him how I felt about the house, the food, and how his actions made me feel disrespected. I also admitted that I missed him and that I didn't want to throw away 2 years over this. We talked for hours, and it felt like we were really listening to each other. In the end, we came to an agreement. Jack insisted on paying me back for the food, but I knew he couldn't afford it. So we compromised. He would pay me back in installments, and he would also help me with some home maintenance tasks that I've been putting off. It seemed fair, and it was a relief to have that sorted out. The kids were a bit hesitant when I told them Jack and I were trying to work things out. They were upset about the whole situation, but they also missed him. We all sat down together and talked it through. Jack apologized to them too, and they eventually forgave him. It was a good lesson for all of us about communication and forgiveness. Since then, things have been slowly getting back to normal. Jack has been over a few times and he's been really helpful around the house. He's also been more mindful of our space and resources, which I appreciate. The kids are warming up to him again, and it's nice to see them laughing and joking around like before. I've learned a lot from this experience. I realized that I need to set clearer boundaries and communicate better. I also learned that it's okay to be upset, but it's important to forgive and give people a chance to make things right. It's not easy, but I think Jack and I are on the right path. So, that's where we are now. It's been a tough week, but I'm hopeful for the future. I'm glad I gave Jack a second chance, and I'm grateful for the support of my kids. It's not perfect, but we're working on it, and that's what matters. Now for the comments. Comment 1. Man, I feel you. Had an ex who treated my place like a hotel too. Came back from a work trip to a disaster zone. It's about respect, right? If they can't understand the effort it takes to maintain a home, especially with kids, they're not worth the stress. You did the right thing. Comment 2. Hey, it's tough when you're trying to blend lives and set boundaries. Sounds like you've got a good head on your shoulders. Remember, it's not about the money, it's about respect and partnership. If Jack can't step up to that, you're better off without that kind of headache. Hang in there. Now for the next story. Every year my siblings and I, alongside our families, spend Christmas with our parents. We stay at their house for a few days. Everyone opens gifts together. It's hectic but a lot of fun. The kids enjoy having one big sleepover with their cousins. My mum likes having everyone home again. We all pitch in. It's a win-win. Last year my brother married Sally. She has a 7-year-old daughter, Mindy. This was their first Christmas with us. It seemed like they were having a fun time. Christmas Eve, all the kids went to the finished basement to sleep. We told the kids to not open up gifts without us and to wake us up when they did. This was repeated several times. Once the kids were asleep, we put all the gifts under the tree and eventually went to bed ourselves. The next morning, around 6 a.m, I wake up early and head downstairs. I find the living room a mess. Half of the gifts were unwrapped. Several of them had been ripped from their boxes. There was Mindy playing with some of the toys. Most of the ones weren't even hers. She knows how to read and they were all labelled, so she knew this. I was in shock. I went and got my brother Sally alongside the rest of the adults. Sally was super embarrassed. My mum was very upset. The other kids weren't up yet, so we tried to salvage what we could while Sally talked to Mindy. Not everything could be fixed, and she had broken a couple of toys completely. The broken ones weren't even her own toys. Luckily, not everything was damaged, and even the boxes that were, the kids didn't notice. But my nephew, sister's son, had one of his big gifts destroyed, and he was sad when everyone else got theirs, while he was told he'd have to wait for a new one to come back in. Sally and my brother reimbursed everyone. Mindy didn't get to open gifts with everyone but joined the festivities later. She apologized but kept making excuses. She said she didn't want to wait and she wanted to see what everyone else got. We're all preparing to go to my parents again this year. I put in the group chat that we should either lock the door to the living room this year or put a gate around the tree so no one can get to it. I didn't even name names, just specifically said no one. Sally and my brother got mad, accusing me of treating Mindy like a baby or an animal. I said I'm not, but this is a precaution so none of the kids are tempted. They said this isn't necessary and I'm holding a mistake over Mindy's head. I said no, I'm not. I'm trying to make sure we have no repeat. Because I know it'll be asked. Mindy doesn't have autism or ADHD, and even if she did, my daughter has ADHD, and both my sister's kids are on the spectrum. They knew better. I don't think Mindy was malicious. She was only 6. But I do think precautions should be made. My parents agree with me, and my brother is mad that I put it in their heads. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. It's unfortunate you even have to lock the door, but your brother and stepsister need to discipline their daughter better. It's not just the fact she opened them early, it's that she broke other people's gifts. Comment 2. Info. If you truly believe Mindy wouldn't do this again, are there other kids likely to be tempted? What age range of kids are we talking about, and why do you think there might be a repeat? Now for the update. So, it's been 2 weeks since I posted about the Christmas disaster with my niece Mindy unwrapping everyone's gifts. A lot has happened since then, and I guess I just need to vent and maybe get some perspective on things. After the whole group chat blow up, things got pretty tense between my brother and me. We didn't talk for a few days, which is unusual because we usually shoot the breeze about sports or whatever. Sally reached out to me though, and we had a long talk. She apologized again for what happened last Christmas and explained that Mindy had been going through a lot with the adjustments of a new family and moving. I felt for her, I really did. We agreed to meet up without the rest of the family to talk things through. The meet-up was awkward, to say the least. Sally brought Mindy, and she had this little apology letter she'd written for me. It was kind of heart-melting, honestly. The kid was trying, and I could see that. We talked about setting up some boundaries and rules for Christmas, and Mindy seemed on board with it all. Sally suggested a practice run of Christmas morning where we'd simulate the gift opening with some fake presents to teach Mindy self-control. I thought it was a good idea. Fast forward to the practice run, and it was a bit of a disaster. Mindy got really upset when she couldn't open the fake presents right away, and it ended with her in tears. Sally was frustrated, and I was just standing there feeling like the world's biggest jerk. But then, something kind of amazing happened. My daughter, who's got ADHD and is usually all over the place, sat down with Mindy and talked to her about waiting and being patient. It was like this little moment of clarity for Mindy, hearing it from another kid, I guess. The next few days, my brother and I started talking again. It was a bit stiff at first, but we both didn't want to be fighting, especially with Christmas coming up. We agreed to put the past behind us and focus on making this year better. My parents were relieved. They hate it when there's tension in the family. Christmas was looming and everyone was a bit on edge. We decided to go with a compromise. We'd put a small fence around the tree, but it wasn't locked or anything. It was more of a symbolic boundary, and we all agreed to keep an eye on the kids, especially Mindy. The big day came, and you could cut the tension with a knife. Everyone was watching Mindy like a hawk, which I could tell was making her nervous. But she was doing great, playing with my daughter and her cousins, and not even glancing at the tree. Dinner went off without a hitch, and we all played some board games. It was nice, almost like old times. Then it was bedtime for the kids. We tucked them in, reminded them about the rules, and went to bed ourselves. I couldn't sleep, though. I kept thinking about last year and what could go wrong. Eventually, I got up to get some water, and I heard a noise from the living room. My heart was racing as I crept down the stairs, half expecting to see the chaos of last year. But it wasn't Mindy. It was my nephew, the one whose gift got destroyed last time. He was just sitting there looking at the tree, not touching anything. I sat down next to him, and he whispered that he couldn't sleep because he was worried about his present. I told him I understood and promised that no matter what, we'd make sure he had a great Christmas. We sat there for a while in the quiet until he fell asleep on the couch. I carried him back to bed and then went to my own, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. It's tough, seeing kids have to deal with adult problems. So here we are the morning after. The kids are starting to wake up and I can hear the excitement building. I'm hopeful that today will be different, that we've all learned something from last year. But there's this little nagging doubt in the back of my mind, wondering if we've really gotten past it all, or if we're just setting ourselves up for another fall. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Now, for the comments. Comment 1. Hey there. It sounds like you're trying to keep the peace and protect the holiday spirit. Maybe consider a new tradition where the kids can open one special gift on Christmas Eve under supervision. It could help manage expectations and give Mindy a structured way to enjoy the excitement without the chaos. Comment 2. I totally get where you're coming from. It's tough when family traditions get disrupted. It's great that you're working on solutions, though. Remember, kids are resilient, and with time and patience, they'll adapt. Keep fostering that open communication with your brother and Sally, and you'll find a way through this together. Now for the next story. I am a 48-year-old female, and my eldest is a 22-year-old male. He has been with his fiancée, daughter-in-law, since they were 20, and he wants to marry her. I had always liked her before now. She is a smart girl, fits in well with the family, is driven, and she makes my son happy. Everything was going well until they got engaged. Ever since I was little, I have been fascinated with jewellery. When I got older, married, and had my own income, I started collecting rings. I would design them myself and ask friends and family to give me cash that I could use towards them. I also saved up my disposable income for the rings I wanted. Edit 2. Okay, apparently this paragraph above is controversial. In my family, it has always been custom to give cash in celebrations. It is also very normal in my community to ask friends to give cash. I have done this myself for my friends. However, I always covered the majority of the cost of each piece of jewellery. Whatever I received from birthdays was a bonus top-up, not something I relied on to afford it. It would be less than 10% of each piece, definitely not the bulk. The highest percentage was 10%, but mostly it was around the 3-4% mark, if any. Sorry, but quite a few comments are being derailed by this. I was not buying one every year, but over time I have built up a nice collection of rings. My favourites are a sapphire with a halo of diamonds, an emerald in a trilogy with 1-carat diamonds on either side, and a ruby set in a pavé band. After my son got engaged, we invited him and my daughter-in-law to dinner at home. My daughter-in-law asked to speak to me. She said she had seen my emerald ring over the years and had always wanted one. She pointed out that I wear it the least often, which is true, and demanded that I gift it to her as an heirloom engagement ring. This is in addition to other wedding gifts and expenses we had discussed as a family during dinner. This includes gold worth approximately $6,000, which is honestly more than my entire wedding cost, and I still think it is a significant amount. This rubbed me the wrong way, and I admit I accused her of trying to pick through my estate before I'm even dead. I told her the ring is mine, and I can even sell it on my deathbed if I want to. She has no right to expect it, and she is being a rude brat by demanding it. She yelled at me that something like this can't just be sold, it should be an heirloom, and it's normal for heirlooms to be passed on while the wearer is still alive. I told her to leave if she was just in my home to demand my property, and she stormed out, taking my son with her. She is mad at me, and my son says I should have just given her the ring since I have others, and it would be a nice gesture to welcome her to the family. He says it is no different than his sister occasionally borrowing some of my pieces. My husband and my daughter are on my side, but this is the first time my son has shut me out like this. So am I the jerk? Edit. My daughter-in-law already has an engagement ring. It is beautiful, and I would call it expensive. This is not a case of her being proposed to without a ring. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. That's incredibly entitled to demand the ring. Full stop. Even if we ignore your age, you're only 48 for FFS. Who demands another person just give up one of their most treasured possessions? Yeah, I think it's time to take a look at the will. Comment 2. Not the idiot. What are the odds she'll remember it's a family heirloom and give it back when they divorce? You'll never see it again. Besides, you have a daughter and one day maybe granddaughters. They are the people you leave your jewellery to. Now for the update. Hey everyone, I wanted to give you all an update on the situation with my son, his fiancée, and the whole engagement ring drama. First off, thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. It really helped me to see things from different perspectives and figure out how to handle the situation. So, after the big blowout, things were pretty tense for a while. My son was still upset with me and my daughter-in-law wasn't speaking to me at all. I spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that had happened and realized that, despite the argument, I didn't want this to tear our family apart. I decided to reach out to my son first. We met for coffee, just the two of us, and had a long talk. I apologized for how things escalated and explained that my reaction was more about feeling like my boundaries were being crossed than about the ring itself. He shared his feelings too, and it became clear that he just wanted to make his fiancée happy, but didn't realize how it would affect me. After that, I reached out to my daughter-in-law. I invited her over for tea, just the two of us, to clear the air. It was awkward at first, but I apologized for calling her a brat and for not being more understanding of her feelings. She apologized too for demanding the ring and not respecting my feelings about my jewelry. We talked about why the ring was so important to her, and she explained that she had always admired it and felt it symbolized the strong women in our family. I was touched by that and decided that, while I wasn't ready to part with the ring just yet, I wanted to do something special for her, so I took her to my jeweler and we designed a new ring together, inspired by the emerald one she loved. It wasn't the same, but it was unique to her, and we used some of the gold we had set aside for the wedding to make it. Seeing her face light up when she saw the finished ring was worth every penny. The process of designing the ring together actually brought us closer, and we started to bond over our shared love of jewelry. We even started a little tradition where she comes over and we talk about the stories behind each piece in my collection. My husband and daughter were relieved to see the family getting along again, and my daughter even joked that she's got her eye on a couple of pieces for the future, but she'll ask nicely when the time comes. As for the wedding, it was beautiful. My son and daughter-in-law looked so happy, and I felt a sense of peace knowing that we had all worked through our issues. The new ring was a hit, and many family members commented on how lovely it was and how it seemed to suit her perfectly. In the end, I learned a valuable lesson about communication and compromise. I realized that while my jewelry collection is important to me, my relationships with my family are priceless. And my daughter-in-law learned that being part of a family means respecting each other's feelings and possessions. So, things are pretty good now. My son and daughter-in-law are happily married, and we've all grown closer through this experience. It's funny how something as small as a ring can cause such a big commotion, but it's also amazing how it can bring people together in the end. Thanks again for all the support. It really helped me navigate through a tough time. Now, for the comments. Comment 1. Have you considered why your DIL might feel entitled to that specific ring? Maybe it's not just about the ring, but what it represents to her. It's worth having a heart-to-heart to understand her perspective. Perhaps you could help her find or design a ring that's just as special. Comment 2. I had a similar spat with my niece over a family necklace. It got heated, but when we cooled off, we realized it was more about feeling valued than the jewelry. We ended up picking out something new together, and it was a bonding moment. Sometimes it's about the sentiment, not the item. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day. Have a great